Insurance isn't one size fits all, and shopping for it shouldn't feel like squeezing into something that just doesn't fit. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they show you options that fit your budget. Enough hunting for discounts, trying to calculate rates, and tinkering with coverages. Maybe you're picking out your very first policy, or maybe you're just looking for something that works better for you and your family. Either way, they make it simple to see your options. No guesswork, no surprises. Ready to see how easy and fun shopping for car insurance can be? Visit Progressive.com and give the Name Your Price tool a try. Take the stress out of shopping and find coverage that fits your life, on your terms. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
I am certain that you're at something, probably many things, but perhaps you occasionally struggle to convey that message to other people, and some of your qualities lie unappreciated and underutilized. The frustration here is that a lot of our success in life comes from getting people to believe that you can be relied on. After all, the only thing propping up a government, a brand, or a leader is simply the stories and faith that we have to rely on them. And when you think about this, you realize that the underlying hidden goals behind any of our stated goals in life is to convince other people in the world to have faith in you. Let's say you have a job interview, or you're trying to get a record deal, or maybe you want to get married. These goals are all about having someone else having faith in you. Now, you've probably heard the saying that people will forget what you say, but they will never forget how you make them feel. That's because the saying is true. Our brains quickly forget all the details about a person or even a book, and as emotional creatures, we rely on the disposition of our emotions, and these hold much greater weight in our memories. That's why if I ask you about a book you read 10 years ago, you could probably tell me how good it is, even if you couldn't tell me any of the points it makes. And it's probably the exact same thing about somebody you met a week ago. If you went to a networking event, you probably don't remember what someone's job was or where they live, but you do remember if you like them. And this is a principle that humans intuitively understand, yet rarely utilize. Most of us spend way too much time trying to succeed in life by telling people details about ourselves. But that doesn't work. If you are dressed a bit haphazardly and someone in an interview asks you about your strengths, and you answer with some vague statements like you really enjoy learning and, oh yeah, you won an award for writing once. So yeah, you're definitely a good communicator, and oh yeah, you're organized. You're definitely organized. That's one of your skills. But the way you stated all of those skills with a disorganized tone speaks much more strongly than the specific words that you said, which do get forgotten. Instead of telling people data, we have to make them feel the emotions that will do the job for us of our words. Now, this is a hard thing to do, but the great thing about it is that most people don't do it. They make the mistake of trying to influence others with data, whether at work, people giving a PowerPoint speech, or even in an argument where people claim to be rational. The natural weaknesses people have in the way they try to influence others represents a huge opportunity to level up for yourself and hold a much greater presence and develop an attitude and aura that will make you incredibly more memorable and thus more successful at whatever the hell it is you want to be doing with your life. So, hello and welcome to the Growth Mindset Psychology Podcast with me, Webster Harris. Each episode, we uncover a specific lesson from the science of self-improvement and usually zoom out a little bit to help you build your own philosophy of a life well lived. Topics will help you synthesize lessons for yourself in a personal way rather than a prescribed way, because I hate shows that tell you exactly what to do, because we are all rather unique. So, Today, we are talking about the topic of getting people to know just how awesome you are and be more memorable. Of course, we are all awesome in very different ways, so any single action point or example I might give could be completely off for you, but the aim is to give you some really solid principles that you can rely on to make your first impressions count and help you build influence in wherever you are trying to get to. All right, let's roll into the episode. I have 3 big lessons for you today, and for the sake of diversity, we're going to launch the episode with a poem about being yourself. I am not how I describe myself, but I am the way I make you feel. I am not my job, hobbies, or interests, but I am what I say and do. I am not the person I used to be, but I am the result of everything I've seen, and I am not the person I will become. I am only the foundations in between. I am not as funny as I aspire. I am only the joy that I bring. I am not as wise as my mind desires. I am just mistakes and lucky wins. I cannot be told how, what, where, or who to be, but that doesn't even matter when I will always be me. So may you watch what I do in the way that I do it. I can't get around the problem. I can only go through it. So our first big lesson here on being memorable is being yourself. Trying to be like someone else or replicate others means you are just a watered down version of those other things. As I say, you can't be someone else. Everyone else is already taken. And why would someone listen to a podcaster trying to be like Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan or Esther Perel? Those people already exist, and you would listen to the real version than someone trying to be like them. But of course, you might ask, what if being myself isn't enough? I've always been myself so far, and it hasn't got me the results I'm looking for. Well, yes, certainly a valid point, but I would say it takes time to develop your own personal style in life at anything. There is a level of skill a painter or a writer needs, for example, before they actually have the ability to express themselves with the freedom that matches their thoughts. It took years for Picasso to start painting like Picasso. It took years for Mark Manson to start writing like Mark Manson. And it took several years for Mr. Beast to start making YouTube videos like Mr. Beast. These people, these incredibly influential and unique individuals known for their own personal style, didn't start out with their personal style. They experimented a lot in the pursuit of their craft before they were able to hone in on their specific style of being themselves. If you look at Picasso, he had several eras before he honed in on the styles that he is known for. If you look at Mark Manson's early writing work, he wrote hundreds of blog posts and even a book about dating before he went into the wider self-help genre with his very sweary and philosophical take on life, which made him one of the best-selling authors of the century. Again, Mr. Beast, he made hundreds of YouTube videos of himself dicking about, playing video games, pulling pranks, making explainer videos about things, and it took time for him to settle into the style of Mr. Beast that he is known for that made him the world's biggest YouTuber. And sure, this makes lots of sense if you want to be a creator or run a business, that you should take time to settle into your zone and create those skills you need to start expressing yourself as yourself. But it's the same for anybody if you simply want to make better first impressions, be that in an interview, on a first date, or even social engagements. We might think that how we come across is kind of fixed because we're stuck being who we are. But I would say a lot of us haven't even worked out fully who we are and how to explain it, and how to actually be ourselves. It takes some time to learn these skills as you become an adult, and some people never learn it. If you can truly be honest with yourself and open-minded to try different ways of introducing yourself and get the concept out of your head that you are stuck with your current levels of embarrassment when you talk about yourself, or maybe your current level of over-talking when you're nervous, or perhaps you feel you always have good conversations with people when you first meet them, but for some reason never get a call back. Well, there is still something you can do, and to help with that, we can move on to the next lesson, which is the concept of show me, don't tell me. As I alluded to earlier, fundamentally, you can convince anyone of any quality about you by showing them. In 2019, I had the legendary author of Pitch Anything, Oren Klaff, on the show, where we spoke a lot about credibility and the concepts that he teaches there. And he explained just how important it is to show people your value Whether that's in sales or a job, you can't tell someone you're good at X. It doesn't do anything. If you show them, they will believe you. A really good example I liked here was the concept of humor. If you want someone to think you are funny, don't tell them you're funny. You have to make them laugh. I mean, really now, if I tell you that I'm a very funny person, honestly, one of the world's funniest people, you might nod politely at me. You might even smile, but you won't laugh at all. I didn't tell you a joke. I made a statement. I gave you a fact with no evidence to back it. After our conversation, you probably won't tell anybody how hilariously funny I am because you'll probably completely forget that I am such an incredibly funny person. However, if I was to tell you a string of jokes so brilliant that you slightly wee yourself from laughing, panic about the fact that you're weeing yourself, then remember how hilarious my joke was and subsequently pee yourself even more, well, yes, you will probably remember for the rest of your life just how funny I am. Years later, you might be talking to a friend, and if they were to say they were going to meet me, you would immediately tell them just how funny I am. You might even be honest with them and tell them you had a really big toilet disaster from laughing so hard in my presence, and that you wisely recommend they go for a toilet break before they meet me to avoid such an emergency themselves. And that would be because I didn't tell you how funny I was. I showed you how funny I was by being funny. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Because you really have to drill it into your head that if we expect people to believe and remember facts we tell them about ourselves, we are being completely absurd. People will not remember facts. They will only remember feelings. As the poem said, I am not how I describe myself, but I am the way I make you feel. So you have to focus on your actions over your descriptions. Don't tell them how funny you are. You are only the joy that you bring. And okay, humor is kind of obvious now that I've explained it like that, but where else can you use this principle? Well, we're about to have a quick break and then we'll come back to dig into that question, as well as discussing what I'm changing in my life now to take this principle more seriously. What are some ways that you can build better stories about yourself that do the work for you? And what is the best way to be a kinder person? All coming up after the break.
Starting or growing your own business can be intimidating and lonely at times. Your to-do list may feel endless with new tasks, and lists can easily begin to overrun your life. So finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything as a built-in business partner can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Gymshark, Rare Beauty, and Heinz, to brands just getting started. Shopify has hundreds of ready-to-use templates that can help you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. And you can tackle all the important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to save multiple websites or try to figure out what platform is hosting the tool that you need. And if people haven't heard about your brand, you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you, with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns to reach customers wherever they're scrolling or strolling. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. That's shopify.com/realm. Insurance isn't one size fits all, and shopping for it shouldn't feel like squeezing into something that just doesn't fit. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they show you options that fit your budget. Enough hunting for discounts, trying to calculate rates, and tinkering with coverages. Maybe you're picking out your very first policy, or maybe you're just looking for something that works better for you and your family. Either way, they make it simple to see your options. No guesswork, no surprises. Ready to see how easy and fun shopping for car insurance can be? Visit progressive.com and give the Name Your Price tool a try. Take the stress out of shopping and find coverage that fits your life on your terms. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs.
So, as I've now demonstrated, humor is a very obvious trait that just doesn't come across from explanation. People will only believe you're funny if you are funny, but it is exactly the same if you say you are good or interested in anything that you can think of. So if you are applying for a job or trying to sell a product or going on a date, you do have to stop focusing on the ways you describe yourself and look first at your actions and the stories that you tell that back that up. As Alex Hormozy says, the best way to build confidence is an undeniable stack of evidence that says you are who you say you are. And this doesn't just build your confidence, it builds other people's confidence in you as well. So find good examples that you can use that show exactly who you are and why you are so great or interesting. If you are looking for some help in this area, my episode on 7 weird life skills to improve your life has a great set of lessons on how to actually build traits like enthusiasm, how to be a funnier person or stay calmer. So a great resource there if you are looking for some help on building a stack of evidence that you are who you are. But I will mention a few really useful points for this episode. I would try and spend some time on creating good stories of things that have happened in your life. And we think that a good story is only some dramatic big thing like climbing a mountain or building $1 billion business. But actually, stories happen all the time, every single day. And it's our ability to notice them and tell them that makes us a good storyteller. It's not necessarily just having giant things to talk about. A good storyteller can make you interested in what they made for dinner last night by talking about their feelings, their frustrations with the wrong things they had in the fridge or the different choices they had to make, and the time pressures of getting all their work done in time to then get to the supermarket, decide which pasta is the right pasta when they know nothing about pasta, and so on. We are all humans who experience a wild range of emotions when it comes to almost every single thing that we do. And so whatever it is that you've done, there is a way to tell a story about it that is interesting if you take the time to work that out. But then, of course, you still have lots of stories that maybe aren't telling the thing you need to be telling. And if you don't have any real evidence that you are who you say you are, you do need to start doing some things that prove that you are who you think you are. So, for example, if you like hiking, take a whole month or 3 months to hike a very long way. That really proves that you are someone that hikes. If you like movies, start a blog or a podcast critiquing the lighting and casting choices of different directors. Then you definitely are someone who is super, super passionate about movies. Those are pretty random specific examples, but whatever your goals are, think of what it is you want people to be thinking about you. Then do what you need to do to be instantly known for that. That could be preparing jokes, writing stories, or taking action. And there are so many examples here of what would or wouldn't work, that there's no point me listing them all. I can really only give you questions to ask yourself to work this out for you. So firstly, what are the strengths I want people to recognize in me? And some follow-up questions on that actually would be, what do I believe about myself that other people don't seem to notice? And what do people say about me that suggests I'm getting something wrong? Ultimately, you do have lots of strengths. Identifying what they are and what it is you want people to understand about you is the first step in then learning how to communicate and demonstrate them. And then naturally we move on to the second step, which is what occasions have I demonstrated these strengths before? And can you turn these into stories, whether that's a story of success or failure or something even stupid and mundane, but actually gets the point across? Although, of course, we want to come across wonderful and really good at things, often the more mundane a story can be, the more human it makes us seem. And that's really important even if you want to be a leader. It just comes across very trustable, and you still want to be someone that people want to be around. Often, instead of telling a story about climbing a mountain that sounds all very heroic, it can sometimes be better to tell a story about failing to make a cup of tea. Or this week I made hummus with so much garlic that it was almost inedible, but I cracked into it anyway. And 2 hours later, my partner walks into my office and does a double take and is like, "What is that smell in here?" To which I had to timidly reply that it's probably my breath. And yeah, I'm not the best at making hummus, but at least you know that I tried and that I am a human just like you. Anyway, now, of course, You may want to be known for your organization skills or your resilience or math skills, and you can work on some stories that are appropriate for that. That leads us into the last question of how can I quickly tell the story about this quality, or what action can I do in the moment to show this? And I know it sounds kind of lame and egotistical to be thinking so much about your stories and how you come across, but how you explain who you are is so valuable and so important. Most of us get so lost in how we look and how we present ourselves on social media, and yet we don't spend any time on really working out our stories or just being like the person that we say you are. When it comes to taking actions, you don't say that you like a challenge, you just always take the stairs. You don't say that you like cats, you volunteer for an animal shelter. You don't just say that you're a good friend, you always show up and that you're always available when someone needs you. And the point about all of this is not about showing off, it's just making it easy for people to understand who you are, what is your thing, what are you up to. On the subject of what are you up to, a really useful point that I have to make is that a lot of us do have slightly weird jobs or amazingly normal sounding jobs that are actually more interesting if people knew precisely what you were doing. An example of weird jobs is you'll see a lot of people that do a PhD where their job is to dive into the depths of things that no one else on the planet actually understands or has put much time into. But if you try and explain what you're doing with your PhD, knock people out with jargon, so make people know how smart you are, but they just feel dumb and don't actually know what you do, or you can just be embarrassed and spend 5 minutes not talking about it whilst you talk about the fact you can't talk about it, which is just uncomfortable. That is a default behavior that a lot of people do that have slightly weird jobs. Or you can make people feel smart and help them understand at their level what it is that you do exactly. And that'll actually make them think you are smart as well. For example, I did my biology thesis on the surface albedo level of Triticum ice leaves by studying the different wax crystal formations on different genotypes, and then trying to work out how that all related to the general continental surface temperatures of the world. And it sounds kind of impressive, but it is basically completely forgettable and you don't know what I do. I could also easily spend a few minutes being like, you won't get what I'm talking about. Like, it's planty stuff and temperature stuff and crystal-y stuff and electron microscopes. Yeah. And you still don't know what I'm talking about and it's weird. I could explain it in human language, skip a lot of the details that don't really matter, and just end up by saying, I measure reflectivity of plants to see if you can reduce surface temperatures by 1 degree over summer. And then people are like, wow, you can reduce surface temperatures by 1 degree with like reflective plants? Are they all reflective? You're like, no, all plants just have a natural level of some reflectance. And it's not like you'd plant mirror-like plants everywhere. What I'm actually studying is just wheat, and planting slightly different varieties of a wheat crop can have this difference. And in fact, if you do plant a wheat variety that has a slightly higher albedo or reflectivity, not only does it lower temperature, it's also more drought resistant and has a higher yield. Wonderful. And they're like, wow, that's really smart, as opposed to having no clue what the hell you do. So as you can see, 10 times better if you work on the language that you use and make it easier for people to understand what it is you do by not focusing on the exact details and just giving the summary that's important for them. So I've given you some great questions for you to dwell on. And one quality that I do believe is useful for all humans is not just in how they present themselves, but also for their own life satisfaction, is kindness. And yes, we all like to think of ourselves as kind, but a really, really cool tip that won't cost you anything, but I genuinely believe will make you a nicer person and help develop a general principle for kindness is this idea. Every time you prepare a meal, let's say you have a friend visiting, always give them the better serving. Pretty much every time you prepare a plate, it can be kind of obvious that one plate looks slightly better than the other. And if you always give the slightly better one to someone else, it just makes them know that you really care about them having a nice experience beyond your own interests. And in reality, the meal with a tiny bit more cheese makes no real difference to you in the end. And in fact, it can have the same amount of everything else, just slightly more cheese will already do the trick. The thing is, this is such a tiny gesture, but it does feel like a bit of a sacrifice, and it helps build the habit of prioritizing other people's feelings and comfort. And when you get into this habit, it does directly show your friends or anyone that you are a kind and caring person. It really helps you develop that mindset within yourself for thinking of others first. So, as we've learned, take the time to work on the skills that help you be yourself. Find ways to show that you are who you say you are instead of telling people, and build ways to make stories that make things obvious and understandable for others, because humans work on the power of stories, and your success depends on people believing in you, which requires you to tell stories that show how believable you are. Thank you so much for listening. And on the topic of kindness, another way that you can be kind is to leave me a solid rating on whichever app you get your podcasts on, because it will totally make me smile and feel very appreciated and help other people find the podcast. And if that's not enough, another way you can be kind is by reaching out to a friend who really struggles to tell their arse from their elbow during first impressions. And what you can do is you can send them this episode. And I'm sure you just thought of someone right now. So you can totally show up for them today and send them this episode. And after that, you've basically been a saint and you won't need to do anything else nice today because you've nailed it. Alrighty. If you are anything like me and you totally fail to work on the thing you're supposed to be working on, then in our premium community, we have started doing co-working sessions for shared accountability, which is a totally wicked feature I'm very happy about. And of course, you get things like ad-free listening, and you can ask all the questions that you can think of, which will be answered by myself. Links are in the description. But don't forget, the most important thing we've learned today is to share your cheese. If you do forget everything else I've told you about, remember this. Americans eat on average 42 pounds or 20 kilos of cheese each year. The French, in fact, eat 57 pounds or 30 kilos of cheese each year. So being completely honest, cheese is the mysterious and unspoken about sixth love language. So share your cheese. Thank you so much for listening.
Go you!
Your consistency to reach the end of an episode is legendary.
My hero!
If you have any ideas or feedback for the show, I'm always interested to hear from you.
You're the best!
Studies show we need time for information to sink in, so I'm going to give you a 5-second pause, silence, to reflect on one idea from the show before you jump back into your busy life. Ready and go.